Hello again, and welcome to Dinner for Two. I'm Chef Hummel, and today for you I have crab cakes. Being from New England, I am a huge fan of seafood, and today when I'm thinking seafood, I'm actually thinking of my family over in the Mid-Atlantic, so I'm thinking of a fun take on a traditional Maryland-style crab cake. So after a little bit of prep, I've already taken the time to chop up our red and green peppers, our onions, some cilantro and scallions, got together a little bit of mayo and some Old Bay seasoning. Old Bay is a staple in Maryland when it comes to anything having to do with crab. I'm going to take my lump crab meat. This is actually canned. If you can't find fresh crab meat, especially for crab cakes, you can find just lump blue crab meat in your local grocery store in the seafood section. The one that I had came in a little container with a pop top. You can also find smaller cans. Whatever works, just make sure that you drain the water out really, really well. So I've got my drained lump crab meat. I'm just gonna start by adding my green peppers. Gonna throw in my red peppers. Gonna throw in my onions. All right, and I'm gonna take my first group of vegetables, just give them a nice mix in just so that everything will be blended in really, really nicely by the time we're done. You're gonna wanna make sure that you're only mixing with one hand so that you've got a clean hand free to pour in your other ingredients. So at this point, I'm gonna take my cilantro, my scallions, about 2 tablespoons of Old Bay seasoning. And again, this is just gonna put a really nice flavor through your crab meat. Before you add your salt and pepper, it'll spice it up really nicely. There's some salt in the Old Bay, so don't go too heavy on the salt when you're adding your salt and pepper to taste. All right, you know what? As I'm mixing this up, I'm realizing my bowl's a little bit smaller. I'm just gonna go grab a bigger bowl. There we go. You want to give yourself plenty of room for mixing up all your ingredients and nicely so that it's not awkward, messy, getting everywhere. So now that we've got ourselves into a proper sized bowl, we are going to want to add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. At this point, I'm just going to wipe off my hand so that I can cut a lime and squeeze it into the bowl. So now if you've got your lime, good technique is to just roll it across the board. It starts to pop all of the little citrus knobs in your lime, which makes it easier to juice and easier to get all of the juices out of the lime and into your bowl. So I've cut my lime in half, just gonna squeeze it in there. And now that we've added our lime, we're gonna add about half a cup of mayonnaise. And we're gonna crack in 1 egg. All right, at this point, now that you've got all your vegetables, all your spices, all of your wet products in your mixture, give it a good mix, get it mixed all through. And then you're going to take some panko breadcrumbs. I have about 2 cups here. You're probably gonna end up using about 1 to 1.5 cups, and then using the other cup to coat your crab cakes with. The really important thing is you wanna make sure that it dries out your mixture enough so that you can create a nice cake that holds together firmly, but not so dry that it crumbles apart. And then you still want to make sure that you have a little bit of panko left over so that you can roll it up and get a nice bread coating all over your crab cake. So I'm going to start with about a cup. See if that's enough. And as you can see, as I'm trying to create a ball with this filling, it doesn't quite hold together well, so I'm going to add about another half a cup. You have a nice firm cake that's gonna hold together really well, but it's still really moist, it's not too dry. And at this point, for just a splash more flavor, you're gonna wanna add about 2 tablespoons of sriracha. Sriracha is a spicy Thai chili sauce. It just adds a great little bit of flavor as well as heat. Unlike Tabasco, which in my opinion has too much of a spice without really much of a flavor. The Thai chili just has a really nice pepper flavor to it along with a good bit of heat. So we're just gonna give it a little squeeze, about 2 tablespoons. Get our hands back in there. Honestly, the best mixing devices, if you can handle the fact that your hands are gonna get a little bit messy, they're my favorite things to mix anything with, because you get a good feel of what you're mixing, how you're mixing, and you can get it mixed up exactly the way you want it. At this point, you can see that the sriracha has given your crab cake mixture a nice little pink hue to it. So we're just gonna get in there. Make a nice little cake. You can see all the red peppers, the red onions, all of your herbs, some green pepper. And then we're just gonna coat it in our breading over here. Again, just panko breadcrumbs. They brown up really, really nicely once you get them in the saute pan. Now, before we get frying, we're gonna make a chipotle aioli, but before I do, I'm gonna quickly rinse my hands off, get them all clean, and we'll get going on our aioli. Okay, hands are all washed, and now we're ready to make a nice chipotle lime aioli. For those of you who don't know, an aioli is a wonderful sauce that goes well with so many different items. This particular case, we're gonna be serving it with crab cakes. Really what aioli means is garlic mayonnaise, but you end up having so many different sauces that are so much more than that. In this particular situation, we're gonna have a chipotle lime aioli. So we're gonna be adding our mayo and our garlic, but we're also gonna be adding some chipotle peppers and some fresh lime juice to that, and it's gonna create a fantastic sauce that's gonna complement our crab cakes very nicely. So we're gonna start by taking our mayonnaise and adding it to our bowl. Made sure that we have a bowl that's big enough this time. And then from there, we're gonna add some minced chipotle peppers and adobo. What chipotle peppers are smoked jalapenos. At the end of the season, since jalapenos end up producing a lot of fruit, you'll end up having a whole bunch of peppers left over so that they don't go bad. In Mexico, they started smoking them and then adding them to a very, very spicy barbecue style sauce called adobo. So, you know, in your cans, you'll end up seeing chipotle peppers in adobo, and it's basically smoked jalapenos and a fancy spicy barbecue sauce. But I mean, I don't know about you, I hear chipotle everywhere and I don't necessarily know exactly what it is, and that's what it is. So we're gonna add our chipotles, add a little bit of garlic, probably about 2 teaspoons, so that our mayonnaise is now garlic mayonnaise or an aioli. And then once again, we're gonna take our lime, mash it up a little bit to get the juices flowing, cut it in half or in 8s, squeeze it nicely, and then we're just gonna mix it up. Tastes delicious, but it needs a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. All right, and now that our aioli is pretty much mixed up, I'm gonna get our pan preheating for our crab cakes. All right, so we can set this aside, wait for our pan to preheat. I'm just gonna put these away, get them out of our way, keep a nice clean kitchen, and I'll be right back and we can fry up some crab cakes. All right, so now that our pan has had a minute or 2 to heat up, we're just gonna give it a quick test. A little bit of water, splash it in, and it's dancing nicely. So we're gonna add probably about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Olive oil is, you know, a little bit healthier. It's gonna give us a very nice fry, good color on our crab cake, but it's gonna be a little bit healthier than, you know, canola oil, safflower oil, any of that. So we've got a nice hot pan, and you can hear the crab cake sizzle as they're going into the pan. They sound so nice. You can smell the olive oil coming out, starting to get some of the onions and the peppers involved in the cooking. And we're just gonna let these cook. It's gonna take about 3 to 5 minutes on each side, and then they'll be cooked through perfectly. Brown on one side, cooked through in the middle, brown on the other side. Delicious to go with our aioli. All right, so now that we've given our crab cakes about 4 minutes to cook on one side, we're just gonna give them a nice flip. Make sure that as you're flipping, because there is a bit of olive oil on the pan, that you wanna flip away from you. You don't wanna splash it on you, it hurts. Trust me, I know. So we're gonna give it a flip, give it a flip, You've got nice golden brown. It's okay if you end up having a color that looks a little bit darker than you'd think. It actually ends up tasting delicious. The way that the breading is gonna toast on this crab cake, the way that the crab is gonna cook through. You're gonna get some caramelization on your onions as it's on the bottom of the pan. There's gonna be some sweetness coming out of the peppers, and it's just gonna be absolutely delicious. We're gonna wait for this side to cook for about another 4 minutes, and then we're gonna be able to serve it up with our chipotle lime aioli. So now that your crab cakes are all cooked, since we did cook them in a little bit of olive oil, I'm just gonna start by moving them over to a plate that's got some paper towel on it. You wanna let it drain a little bit. I mean, you can give it a quick pat if you'd like. You don't really need to press it down. You don't wanna ruin your crab cakes. But just, you don't want a little bit of the extra oil to seep through and sleep onto your plate if you want to have a nice pretty presentation. So since we've got our aioli, we've got our crab cakes, we've got them draining, I guess really what's time to do is plate. So we're just gonna take a little bit of this aioli, put it right in the center of our plate. And then we're just gonna steal a nice little sprig of cilantro, garnish it like this, and there you have Thai-style crab cakes. For this presentation, I made 2, but 1 pound of crab actually makes about 8 cakes, so it's perfect for you and 3 other friends to have a 2-cake appetizer or a nice hearty dinner for 2. Again, thank you very much for sharing your kitchen with me, and remember, at Dinner for 2, life is delicious. Chef Hummel signing out.